Roundtable Chronicles. We now have all of our series over the 30s in episode, and Ricardo has a song ready that is, what, 3 minutes? Why don't we listen to some tunes?
All views, opinions, and statements expressed by guests are solely their own and do not reflect the views or opinions of the Institute for Natural Philosophy. The guest opinions and statements are based upon information they consider reliable, but the Institute for Natural Philosophy does not warrant its completeness or accuracy, and it should not be relied upon as such. Some content presented may be used under fair use principles for educational purposes. Copyright belongs to the respective owners. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts are of the presenting individuals and do not reflect the views and opinions of the Institute for Natural Philosophy.
Goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet. And whither then, I cannot say. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with weary feet until it joins some larger way, where many paths and errands meet. And whither then, I cannot say. The road goes ever on and on, out from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road has gone, let others follow it who can. Let them a journey new begin, but I at last with weary feet will turn towards the lighted inn, my evening rest and sleep to meet.
I'm just waiting for my light to adjust, but I don't think it's gonna. Hello. So we're gonna go without and say hello, everybody. I like that song, man. What's going on, Tammy? Backyard Son. Tammy, you took your hand at podcasting. I see and hear. I was on the water, and we'll get to that. But so I literally just popped off. See, my hair's still wet. But I did see your post where you are getting your feet wet podcasting. We're excited. We've been after Tammy to do that for a bit. So let us know how it went. Sarah, what's going on? Who else we got? Steve. D-Love, good to see you over here, D-Love. D-Love's been on several of our shows. Appreciate you, man. D-Love 3636. Gentlemen, how are you this evening?
Hi, good. Thank you.
Greetings.
Greetings to all, to earthlings, to any interdimensional beings. Anybody that's not supposed to be here, like, fuck off. This is our place, humans, as we have been studying quite studiously here pretty regularly. Humans, this is our place. Nephilims, Bigfoots. Well, Bigfoot's allowed. Bigfoot's he's a helper from what I understand. So we'll let him stick around. But we kid and we don't kid. Welcome everybody to the Roundtable Chronicles, where we're going to talk about history. I was on the water today checking out history. I've got your video pulled up too, Ricardo. I went down the Coosa River, did a little kayaking by myself, and it's beautiful, man. That's all I really have to say about it. It's just extraordinary. I did a little video. I'll get up at some point, but it's just imagining, man, the numbers that the DeSoto Chronicles tell us were in Coosa's territory, you know, and just going through and seeing these dramatic rock, you know, overhangs that look like faces. I'm not saying they are, but you know, like you know, they'd be important to a native. Like you look at it and it looks like a fucking Indian face, you know, and it's just all this amazing stuff. And then as you get a little further down, there's all these islands, guys, and I'm telling you, these islands have got burial mounds like all on them. You know, real islands in the middle there. Because when you get up to the shore, I've got some video, and it's just worked artifact, worked rock after worked rock, and it's just such a magical place. So I had myself a good time, but I have a headache and I'm out of it. So I will do my best to produce here as requested. Screwdriver, I see you. Catman, Cat Plan popped in. Christos, what's going on, bro? And Screwdriver Tuning, thank you, sir. So Ricardo, you had a request. Amy, Wicked Current, fellow Alabamian, welcome in, Amy. Good to see you. Howdy, good folks, she says to you, gentlemen. Driftwood, a lot of driftwood, D-Love. A lot of driftwood, man. And cypress, I got some video of some cypress that were as wide as my fucking kayak was long, y'all. I mean, massive cypress, just beautiful. Ricardo, you have requested a video. Do you want to set it up? You want part 4, correct? This is the part 4 of 8 of Dr. Stephen Jett. Is that correct? I'll share it here shortly. Let me move my screens around so I can find that button. It didn't give me the tiny riverside for some reason. There we go.
Is it 6 minutes? Have you checked?
I didn't check the time. You just said the latest. So the latest is part 4 here, and it's 7 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't see. Here's our episode right now, and then here's the newest one, part 4. You want the previous one?
It's the previous one.
Part 3. That's 5 minutes and 29 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Gloria Farley. This is the 3rd of 8 small segments of a very special feature film dedicated to Dr. Stephen C. Jett that we could not be prouder to have played a part in making. This is another great production from Dolman Pictures as part of the fantastic Lost America series. You can find the full film in the link on the next post and his book in the post after that. Let's have a short film and a look at Stephen C. Jett. Are you full screen?
Okay.
Are you? I mean, I can't
Gloria Farley was a housewife in eastern Oklahoma. She was interested in what's called American epigraphy, and she had first gotten her start with a little local, apparently Norse runic inscription called the Heavener Runestone at Heavener, Oklahoma. And she was very active, worked with Barry Fell, who was very controversial but very stimulating scholar of what we again call American epigraphy. And she was very, very active, and she went to conferences, mostly not of the professional scholarly type, but we had other conferences or sort of amalgams of professional and avocational researchers, and she was always at those. And she wrote a book, and she actually had a second volume book that's never appeared, but supposedly still being worked on by the editor. In the meantime, Barry Fell, the Harvard invertebrate zoologist, I believe he was, oceanographer, his interest in linguistics and inscriptions, epigraphy, came on the scene and hit it fairly big time in the publishing world. And he generated a huge interest, some sort of far out, but some serious interest in this whole business of possible old world inscriptions in the Americas in pre-Columbian times. And Gloria Farley, who was in Heavener, Oklahoma, she got onto some inscriptions out in the panhandle of Oklahoma and adjacent Colorado, and drew Fell's attention to this, and also to John Polanski, who was a physician at UC San Francisco and a former student of Fell's. And then they got interest generated with Phil Leonard from Utah, and Bill McGlone from Albuquerque. There were several people, and they, with Gloria and with Phil, started looking at these inscriptions in Oklahoma, and they discovered some archaeoastronomical sites that had solstitial alignments and so forth, and various iconography that suggested to Phil Leonard, anyway, particularly, that this was a Mithraic site, a temple to Mithras, an old world god that was common in the Roman period in the Mediterranean region. They got very much into that and put out several books. And they had a falling out with Barry Fell over this whole business. Barry had some brilliant ideas, but he also had his negative sides in terms of his interpretation, which were somewhat, shall we say, creative. They went their separate ways, but McGlone and Phil Leonard and so forth, they did some very good work, I believe, on that stuff. They by the way, they found like what it seems to be an alphabet of about 30 or 35 characters that lines up very closely to an alphabet in Oman on the Arabian Peninsula. Now figure that. Now, I don't have a good explanation, but thought that came to my mind is why would you have anybody from Oman going in the Oklahoma Panhandle in ancient times? But what occurs to me is a possibility of a transatlantic voyage and coming up the river systems on the way to the Colorado gold fields. But that's total speculation. That's just a thought.
To stop the sharing, otherwise.
That was actually, yeah, hang on, I'm gonna, hang on. You see something really weird?
And we're back, kind of.
Check it. Look, while we were watching that, I did a little promo for us.
Live on X now. Ricardo just got that set up, and we're live, right?
We just got live on X, y'all. So Ricardo set that up. I was proud of him. See, there we go. I showed us watching it. Isn't that like weird? Too many screens, man. It's like I'm there, I'm here. But I wanted to share the fact that we're broadcasting on X live now. So if you're not here on YouTube with us in the chat, find us there. Okay, I'll stop sharing now.
There we go. Now, Rick, you were there when this interview was done.
Yes, I was.
So, do you have any comments for us about the people he's talking about? Because most of the people I
Yes.
don't believe have ever heard of Gloria Farley. And
Oh, that's too bad. Gloria Farley, as he mentioned, she was an avocational archaeologist at first, but she went and got the degree to become credible because she thought that site in Heavener, Oklahoma was incredibly important. And I happen to agree with her on that part. What Stephen Jett did not discuss about Gloria Farley and that site is that it's not the only rune stone in the region. It's just the biggest. And it's just the size of the wall behind me. And then some. It's actually taller. About 20 feet wide, 13, 14 feet tall, and carved into the side of a mountain. They've now built a shelter over it because it was starting to show a little bit of deterioration. It's in Heavener, Oklahoma, just outside of the town. They have a nice park. We have footage of my visiting there without Chris, sadly, but it's a great site if anybody gets in that eastern end of Oklahoma. Now, Gloria, as he mentioned, contacted Barry Fell, and there was a lot of correspondence about the Heavener site and some of the other attached or they're not even adjacent, nearby sites that also include runic writing. Phil Leonard, the other guys, the other people that he mentioned are indeed very well studied on this phenomenon of foreign writing showing up in the Americas. Because that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about, other artifacts, not at this point. But the discussion in that 6-minute clip cannot contain or convey the importance of what all is there or what all they discussed. Gloria wrote books. She, In Plain Sight was her most popular book, best well known, but not the only thing she wrote. She also wrote a number of papers and articles that are actually difficult to find and shouldn't be. But it's the topic and the nature of the topic that she's just not promoted as she deserved. Her work isn't promoted as it deserves. Barry Fell did some important work, very important work, particularly on things like the Easter Island tablets, a few other things. He did an incredibly good job on a site in Mexico. You don't usually think of the Mayans or any of the other tribes of the Yucatan using mud brick stuff. That was a Peruvian thing. But there's a site. And interestingly enough, all of the bricks there had maker's marks on them, which was a Mediterranean trend. And of course, he got shot down by all the academics because he made that connection. But he did great work.
Was Barry Fell an academic himself?
Yes, he was, but not in that field. He was an oceanographer. He was a marine biologist, basically. And very accomplished in that field, too. But his passion was pre-Columbian transoceanic contact. And not just the Atlantic either.
No, it's a shame that I wasn't aware until I work on this. I had no idea who these people were. They don't appear in media. They are not promoted. They are not talked about.
No, you can't even do a really good search on them because there's not enough traffic to promote or to even expose that work. Another person who has done more work, both in that region and in Colorado and a few other places, and who also was a follower of Gloria. I don't know that they ever met. I think actually they did. Crystal Trickle worked with Phil Leonard and a few of the other folks to pursue and continue the work that they had started, particularly in Oklahoma and Colorado.
Is that an indigenous name?
Crystal Trickle? No.
Yes.
No, she's an East Tennessee redhead. Now, don't ask me the etymology of her name, but she's a Scots-Irish transplant into East Tennessee and married further west. And I love to hear her speak, by the way, just because I love that accent. And she's pretty good at her craft as far as
with a name
this
like
research
Crystal
stuff.
Trickle, she better have an accent. That's fine.
He does. I mean, yeah. Anyway, she could have a good, podcast just because of the way she sounds. Anyway, she has done an extension or continuation of particularly Phil Leonard's work and Gloria's pursuits. And she appears in future episodes of Dolman Pictures works, but mostly Lost America. And she filmed me once at the conference, so I don't know what happened with that, but
You never got
I
a
don't know why
copy of that.
anybody ever wanted to interview me.
Well, you're a guy that has nothing to say, so why would they interview you, right? So,
Oh, I have a lot to say, but I'm sparing some people's feelings.
That's kind of how we got started here. I mean, we interviewed you, and you had so much to say. We were like, all right, let's just start a damn show.
yeah,
Yeah.
and fortunately, and Vince is building up to it very quickly. But Rick is one of these people that nobody ever heard about. Nobody's a strong word, but you get my meaning. And has lots of work done. Has a vast baggage of knowledge and correlation of facts, which is what people don't do. Is to
Well,
correlate.
he works
facts.
harder than I do.
Well, he's young. Let's put it that way.
Compared to me, he is, yeah.
I think he's
And
younger
I'll be-
than I am. So
And I'll be even older tomorrow.
yeah, Rick is going to have his birthday tomorrow.
Yeah, happy birthday.
Happy
Thank you.
Well, Rick, I
This
think
is your birthday song. It isn't very long. Hey,
It's probably a very good thing.
well, Rick taught me the meaning of expert. Right, so expert is someone
explains a
who
lot, Vince.
is an expert.
An X is a has-been, and a bird is a drip under pressure. Therefore, an expert is a has-been drip under pressure.
Yes.
What if Crystal Trickle is an expert?
No, but she
A
is.
trickle and a spurt.
Yeah. Sometimes there's an absolute with her work. Sometimes there is a true eruption. Just saying.
So you don't want to be an expert. So what do you want to be?
Respected researcher would be nice.
Yes.
I'll rock with that.
I'm inheriting the title of old, so
You're not old.
About that. That's total. That's
Well,
Come on,
Yeah.
we gotta push that.
I've been around you. I had that privilege, and you don't suffer from most of the maladies of old age.
I don't have a lot of maladies other than a little bit with locomotion, but I'll take it. I'm still locomoting, so
Well, I remember you going up the trail, and I hadn't realized how heavy was the bag that you were carrying up the hill. So
happy birthday as well to your eldest son there, Screwdriver. He shares a birthday with you, Rick, tomorrow. So are we gonna ask how old you're turning? Or are you gonna lie to us and
Well,
tell
you
us
can ask,
20,
yeah.
28?
He's turning
let me
21.
put it this way. I'm older than space travel. I'm older than color television.
Well,
I'm older than FM in a car.
Yeah,
I
there's only
remember those
so many
buttons that
times
said,
you
I
can-
like Ike.
There's only so many times you can turn 49, Rick. I mean, come on. We've
Well,
what's this, the
I
8th time now?
attended the funeral today for my first cousin. Her name was Esther. And she was born in 1933. And for the last 60 some years, she's been telling everybody she's 33.
Nice. Well, yeah. That's a good year. My mother was born in 41. 9/11/41.
Well,
Okay,
condolences.
so
Hopefully.
do what?
Condolences, Rick.
Oh,
Yes.
well, thank you. Yeah, it's been a funeral week. A musician friend that I worked with and ran with for 50 years or so, he died, and we did his service Thursday.
Goodness.
Then I found out yesterday another friend I grew up with died.
Oh,
Yeah, I have decided that at my age, funerals are just a substitute version of speed dating.
Yeah.
That's very looking at the positive side.
Well, even more so if it actually works.
You go try the buffet first, see who brought the best dish, and then go from there. Who made
Yeah,
this
well,
chicken
that's
poppy
late,
seed
but yeah.
casserole? Is that you, size C cup? Did you make this? Find me a cook and a lady. That's what he's up to. I see. Well, that is still heavy times, So certainly condolences all
You just
around.
got to keep going, though.
Oh yeah. That's
Yeah,
about
but-
all there is to do. I think no matter how old you get, right?
Yep, and I might spread this show's title out a little bit at the funeral, so you don't see any of the familiar names yet, but it could happen.
Good.
The thing is, it's easier to start making relations between the age and the people passing away around us, but it has nothing to do with your age, because people passing along all the time. So that's a false perspective that is not necessarily real, because we can lose loved ones and dear ones at any point in life. So
Yeah, it's just when you've known them for 6,
Yeah.
8 decades, it's kind of hard to
yes,
say.
yes, it's true.
Hmm.
It's true.
So
It's-
but funeral processes have always been with us. And as far as ancient studies, it's one of the most precious things we have, unless it's Native American, because we can't touch those. Right, Vince?
Oh my
Unless
gosh.
you're the
Right.
Smithsonian and you have a bulldozer.
How about that? Yeah, either the Smithsonian can cover up the artifacts, or the state of Illinois could bulldoze the mound and call it preservation.
Well, yeah, that one is even more of a stretch than the other instances of which I know, particularly strip mining, because they don't even turn it in. And they don't even have to. The law excludes them in Indiana.
It doesn't matter what they found.
Nope. Don't even have to report it. And I know of 2 cases in one county that they take off the top layer as topsoil, and they're supposed to save it to put back, reclaim the mine property. But every spoonful of it was artifacts. I mean, there wasn't any dirt. It was just all artifact. And they were coming up with, it was villages with streets and sewers.
Sewers.
Kind of like the drainage ditches and sewers, yeah. And it was on the opposite side of the ridge from their fresh water source, because you can tell. And So the 10-acre plot was village houses and a small platform mound, but they just dozed it all away to get the coal and then spread the topsoil back out, and it has no context whatsoever for archaeological study. I know of another 10-acre plot that when I was a kid, it was newly stripped of trees and farmed. And that 10 acres produced at least 130 or so what I call kitchen stones, cooking stones. Just because they used a plow then instead of, no-till farming. So I could see when they pulled them out, and that 10 acres was completely covered as a village site. I only have one artifact from it because it was private property, and I saw it sticking up and I just couldn't resist. But
Vince laughing. I know the feeling. I know it.
Yeah.
The only saving grace of that situation is the property across the road, to the best of my knowledge, was never plowed. It was stripped, but as soon as it was stripped of trees, it was all no-till. So if you get below about 3 or 4 inches and it's not in a tree tip, everything's still kind of in place there.
Well, I have no recollection of any ancient structure in North America that has sewer systems. I'm aware of it in South America, but in North America, I never heard of that such a thing.
Go read up on the Cherokee. The Seneca had it too. Mohawk. Seminoles, yeah. Seminoles had a whole canal system.
Right.
And that was before they went to Florida.
Do we want to define what we mean by sewer? What were they canals that ran along the road? What are we talking?
No, canals were a separate thing. Canals were like a delivery system route. The sewers were more of a drainage than anything else. They probably went to potty in a pot and then carried it elsewhere.
Yeah.
I can't prove that right here, but that's a deduction.
What's the name of that place in North America where the houses are built into the side of the mountain?
Well, there's several. The Pueblos.
Taco Canyon, Mesa Verde.
I think it's Mesa Verde. They found pottery placed in one and another to channel the.
Yes, they had drains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got it completely out of the living space.
They built funnels of pottery and put one on top of the other, and would channeling water from rain to preserve it in reservoirs. Yeah.
And much like ancient Turkey and ancient Persia, they had in-ground cooling systems for their foodstuffs and whatnot. They could cool materials well below ambient air temperature. In fact, they could even make ice, but a lot of work.
Well, in Europe, I know in Portugal, the place still exists where they make ice on the 16th century. It's underground, and then they cut it into blocks and carried the blocks on a wheel chariot by horse to the city.
And they used straw or other insulating materials to keep it intact until they got there. But
have you heard about
nothing wasted? It makes sense that the natives would have. We think of these, the houses that are described, like in the Chronicles and stuff, and they're these very large longhouses, right, with pit, various types of roofing. He says nothing wasted, and we know that is their philosophy, right? That's the way they engage with nature, the whole animism and all of that. So it would have been the same with water resources. So I would not be, I would not doubt that they not only had like ways to channel the water, for instance, off the roof into a place to be used, But I've seen, traipsing through these creeks, man, going up small ones that lead up into obviously moundy areas like around Mobilla. You find ones, man, that go measured same distances. Okay, so I'm just going to make up a number here: 10 paces, right, and takes a right angle, and then 10 paces, right
Right.
angle. And it's like 5 foot high walls, and you're like, man, this is not nature. They were working with water in all ways that it moves.
But back to Ricardo's question about what culture had sewers, all of them that had villages.
Yeah.
And that's
all-
what the white historians won't talk about. The Cherokee had their villages were laid out with streets, sewers, blocks, and they had central, I'll call it ceremonial, but central governance station in each village, which was also their communication spot. Sorry, Vince, go ahead.
I was going to say, at Chicago, they had known that city as the Bay of Puants in Lake Michigan, just north of Chicago. Bay of Puants was basically a sewer, and they used the lake water to as sewer, and it got its name from the smell. And Bay of Puants was just next to Chicago, so
Kind of still smells like that.
yeah, it still smells bad, but Cahokia Mounds and also had evidence of sewers, and being next to the Mississippi River, they routed water around the village for that reason.
Yep.
And one time I asked the archaeologist there, so how did they deal with the sewer system, and did they have? I mean, did they route the water away? And he was working on an excavation, and he said, well, anywhere you see dark soil, it's a sign of the sewer being routed through there. So, I mean, they had, obviously turned the color of the soil black from the sewer water being infiltrating in that area. And those areas were around the palisade or stockade walls away to get it away from the city. So,
Yep.
I mean, he had shown me this when he was excavating, that they knew what to look for, and that these areas were purposefully routed out away from the city into the river.
Which implies city planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you think about it, it just makes sense. People would not want to live with that, around their houses.
And now you know why the white historians didn't want to talk about it, because these people couldn't have been that civilized.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, back up what you said, Rick. When I read the DeSoto Chronicles, they get to Mobilla and they describe it as a city like they would imagine in Europe when they were trying to describe why they couldn't take the horses in there, because it was like trying to navigate a city. In the footnotes, and there's hardly any footnotes in that thing. That's where they put one footnote where it said this is an obvious exaggeration. Was their description of the city.
Well, the novel called, I think in English it's called The City of Light, that is supposedly the tale of an individual from Venezia that went to China before Marco Polo, like 30 years before or something like that. So he's also claiming to be the first one to be there, with writing a novel about it, or a historical tale. And he describes that although the cities were enormous, the sewers run on each side of the street, so the smell was terrible, right? And they were constantly filled with whatever people were doing, right? So even China at this period,
Ricardo, poo.
Yeah,
poo.
Even China in this period, I can't remember if it is 16 something.
Well, it was 30 years before Marco Polo. It was 1290.
1290. Okay, sorry. So they were still having the sewers at open sky, so they were open. They weren't closed.
Well, and most of them were right up until they had to have been until they had pottery, of course. But in Appalachia, for instance, you can still run across some of their pottery sewage pipes. And like Jason was saying, that they're just nested pipes.
Yeah, there's a couple of sites. That's what I was trying to think of. One of them. It's not in America, the site I'm thinking of, but there's a couple of really old, thousands and thousands of year old places that have, like you said, they're like nested. It's like you take a piece of pottery and you put it to a piece of pottery. You put it to a piece of pottery.
Yep.
You put it to a piece of pottery. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one in Lebanon that I know of, and it was associated with Petra, the city of Petra, and it was. It's been a long time since I read it, so don't quote me, but I think it was like 3100 BC. They said it was, kind of like at the dawn of pottery by their standard. So one of the first things they used pottery for was to get rid of their waste.
So now you touched it. Petra was an enormously important place because caravans would pass right in front of it. So what conflicts me about Petra is, first of all, I think there's several other of those buildings around that area of the desert. That's not the only one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The treasury is just the first one you encounter when you come out of the Skinny Canyon.
Yeah.
But that canyon spreads out and it goes for miles.
Yeah. And some of them are at different heights, which means that the ground was at different height also. So some might be buried and some look like they are at the second floor when they start. So.
Yes. But you also had a distinction of travelers versus residents. And the residents didn't want to live at the street where the travelers came through because they'd seen all kinds of things come through.
Yeah, but we see no structures how to reach them. Right?
Yeah. And what's most interesting about Petra is that building right there, that treasury, is attributed to the Romans' occupation, but it was already there.
Yeah, Nabateans or something like that.
Yeah. And it is cut from the rock. There's no masonry stacking there. That is all native stone, living stone.
And that's where I was trying to get to is I find so hard to understand why it's so shallow. Because you enter it and that's it. There's no best way into the mountain where you find other galleries. Were they closed? Are there any records of that? Or
it's called the Roman treasury, but as I mentioned, it was already there when the Romans got there. So it was probably like you would stop there to pay a toll to either enter or exit that narrow canyon. That's what I think it was.
Yeah, that's
but
what
the
they
Romans,
say for the trades, for the caravans when they pass. They pay tribute
precisely.
there.
Because that was all they had. Was they could probably, do accommodations, a place to sleep, place to eat, maybe water their horse or camel or whatever. But they didn't have a lot of nearby agriculture in that valley or even up on the rim around it. So most of what they had to trade with travelers came with the traveler. So their main income, much like Iran right now, is charging somebody else to pass through their space. But like I said, the Romans did not build that facade. They modified it a little bit, but the facade predated them by a couple hundred years by most accounts.
They rarely did this kind of work.
Right.
To build
No, they stacked
spaces.
them. The Romans built things from stacking stone.
Yeah.
They didn't carve into a mountain like that, with very few exceptions. There are a few exceptions.
Is it true that was blown up, or exploded with dynamite, and they had to rebuild it a few years ago?
My understanding was it was shot with artillery, but
Yeah,
I know that's what they did to the Buddha's in
Oh,
Pakistan.
it's terrible.
Yeah, this
Oh,
is
I'm
where
sorry,
they,
Afghanistan.
this is where people know this space because this is where they filmed
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
The Last Crusade,
Man.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken.
Last Crusade. Yep.
Well, they only
That's where he-
filmed the
That's where he
entry.
went in to meet the Templar, right? He went
Yeah.
in there.
Well,
to-
yeah, that's what it was portrayed, but Harrison Ford never actually went there.
No.
I'd have made him fly me to see it.
Yeah, I probably would have too.
Yeah, but you don't know Harrison Ford, so you,
Hmm.
you wouldn't want to.
No, I don't.
Well,
know
he
Harrison
almost
Ford.
died while they were filming
Yeah.
the
That's
first
why
one.
that's why he shot the guy instead of fighting with him because he was
Correct.
so
Yeah, he was.
sweating
Yeah, he
and
was-
42 degrees fever.
Yeah.
Well, my brother-in-law, so my sister, who is, she doesn't watch the show, but she's what I'm not saying anything bad. She's a very not the adventurous type, but she was offered the chance of a very good price to go in a family trip with my brother-in-law brother and his wife to São Tomé e Príncipe. And instead of going to the resorts, this trip is all about going into the interior and going through the old areas and staying on the isolated zones that have beaches with nobody in and so forth. And so they ate the same every single day because every day was a variation of fish with something.
Kind of like Norway.
And they were warned not to touch the water of the taps, right? And my brother-in-law apparently washed his teeth with the tap, and so he suffered terrible dysentery in just 2 weeks. So I can't imagine what what Harrison been through if he ignored those warnings those many years ago. Was still much worse, especially in the area he was.
He's looking pretty rough nowadays, but he's what, 84?
Yeah. Well,
I should look that good when I'm 84.
To be honest, I had, because of the movies, I let myself into the belief of a person that doesn't exist, because Harrison Ford is not what is in the movies.
He didn't start until he was, I think, my age now, like 47 or some shit.
He
No,
was the
that's not true.
carpenter. He was the carpenter of many Hollywood actors and producers.
Yeah.
No, go. He was in a number of television series. He was in Gunsmoke for 2 or 3 different episodes. He was in Bonanza. He was in a bunch of westerns. He was in American Graffiti. He goes back a ways.
Yeah, my point, he doesn't
What's
have.
your point, Ricardo? What's your bone to pick?
My point is, he doesn't have any kind, at least publicly expressed, intellectual interests. He only works for money. He's good at what he does, and he does his job, and that's it. He's not interested in any of aspects of that involve either history or science, or he doesn't care. He's there to do a job and to get paid, and that's it. So
Correct. I believe that to be true,
What were you expecting?
especially when he played the Red Hulk in a Marvel movie. But
I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. Well, before we go into
Russell Crowe collects expensive watches. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what are you expecting from these people? Like they're just paid.
They did.
Dancing monkeys, man.
he sold it all because of the divorce. He did collect watches. Now
Oh,
he
he sold.
doesn't.
Oh, that's.
Now he doesn't have any watches. It's like at almost 80 years old. Um, help me, Rick. What's the name of the tallest guy from the Monty Python?
From Monty
Please.
Python.
John
Cleese.
John Cleese.
Oh.
John Cleese at almost 80 years old, married for the sixth time, I think, and for the sixth divorce. He had to convince all the others that were still alive to do another world trip playing Monty Python that was closed for 40 years to make money to survive the divorce instead of going to live into the streets. So these people have a lot of money, but when things go wrong, Jesus. So,
Well, they earn a lot of money, but they don't manage it well. Most of them, many of them, at least.
well,
I can't say much about that though.
Johnny Depp, I never say his name correctly.
Depp.
Depp or Depp? Johnny Depp spends like $2,000 to $4,000 a bottle of wine. So I'm not saying he can't afford it, but it's still a lot for a bottle of wine. But we are turning into a pink magazine, so I think it's time we pass the ball to Vince because he's been struggling and
Yeah, he's got an hour. Go for it.
with these academic people, and I'm sure he has something to show us from the last developments. I've seen 27 new editions of
Oh my God, a lot of new editions. I'm kind of prolific writer.
It's a what now? 8,000
serial
pages.
Well, today I wanted to say, first, I met with Steve Wilburn and talked about the Institute of Natural Philosophy, and we have a new structured path. Steve has put this together about the path for publishing to get papers out and published with peer review, and the Institute of Natural Philosophy is implementing a new method where they can do peer review and publish the professional process to get papers out there, as well as on Pharaoh's Journal and Pharaoh's Magazine. So that's exciting news coming up, and he has a meeting planned coming up for next month to discuss this new method and get that implemented. And then, but as far as Gloria Farley, going back to that, I think Rick and I met Gloria out in Ohio one time at one of the conferences, and I think she was talking about the Grave Creek tablet and possibly the Heavenly Runestone at that conference.
She did that conference, but I did not.
Oh, okay.
I never had the privilege of meeting Gloria. I've always respected her work, but I never had the privilege. At one time, there was an effort in Heavener to protect and preserve her home and her personal library, but I don't know where that went either.
Yeah, that would have been good to protect and preserve that. But
she had a library and nobody knows what happened to it.
She had a house full of both books and her works and her notes, and kind of like she had boxes of notes.
Steve, can you look for what happened to that? See if something comes up. Thank you.
I haven't done a search in a while, but I didn't find anything 4 years ago.
Because we could preserve all
and
that.
at the Runestone Park, they knew nothing about it.
But I wanted to share this. This is about the Cayuga site, the site where Garden Creek was at, and Garden Creek in North Carolina was where all the Mount Pisgah relics were found. So the Smithsonian has told me that they didn't have any records from this expedition, and the Emmert letters were missing. So I asked them again. Finally, they sent me about like 400 pages of Emmert's papers this week. Literally just tons of information. And so I just plugged it into the AI to transcribe everything. And in those letters, it shows evidence that Garden Creek, North Carolina, used to be a Cherokee village, and it was called Cayuga. And it goes back into the Revolutionary War period, around 1776. This was a Cherokee village, and it was burnt to the ground by Rutherford in 1776. There's documented proof of this village being burnt down, targeted by the Rutherford campaign, and
With what
and so
purpose? Do we know?
it was literally to get revenge, or to basically annihilate the Cherokee. They burnt the villages down, and they did this from all of the half part of 1776 up till December. Even after that, all the way to 1780, they were burning the Cherokee villages down. So this wasn't just a single event; it had stretched out through years of attacks on the Cherokee, and the journals describe the attacks and the villages being burnt down. And so what I found out about is that, I mean, this is a real part of American history. I mean, it was something that happened in 1776, and they burnt down multiple villages. I mean, they said just about every village was burnt to the ground out there, and all these villages, including Pigeon River and Cowie, these were major villages. They said they were targeted and intentionally burnt to the ground.
What
And
happens to the land?
so what they did is they marched across the land and burnt it, and then they took the land. I mean, it became North Carolina, empty land, and it was then sold and settled. I guess the settlers moved into it, and I mean, so this is real history before the country was formed. 1776. This happened right at that time when the country was formed.
Yeah, those are
and they burnt the town, they burnt the corn. Guess what? Well, Valentine came along in 1880. He found the burnt corn, he found the burnt mound and the burnt village remains, and he excavated it, and he found a lot of artifacts that were left behind. And this was Cowie, the village. It was burnt down as well. There were literally hundreds of houses just burnt to the ground, and the journals describe these houses as being unroofed, which is actually like a big house. And they didn't. It wasn't like it was not complete. This was like a sacred.
What do they mean
house.
with unroofed? It probably
Yeah,
had a
no
roof
roof.
somehow.
Like no roof on the top of the house. And
How is
I'll
it?
get to that. I mean, the big house ceremony was something that the Ojibwe had, and they had buildings that had no roof on them. There were others like this that had been roofed, but some of the sacred buildings were made with
But
no roof.
they weren't residences. They were public buildings.
Oh, I
Right,
see.
they're
Okay.
public.
Like the circle dances and for ceremonies and things like that.
Right. But they found there's evidence that they found sculptures and soapstone and steatite, and they called this serpentine. These sculptures were found, and they were documented in 1853 by this guy by the name of Ramsey, and he was involved in the burning of these villages too, and documented burning them down. And this was very near where Garden Creek site found all these figurines from the Valentines that matched these figurines, and so that's
there
the
was proof of
earliest.
burning too, right?
Those figurines are AI or are they real?
Yeah, this is just an AI representation
Okay.
of what they look like. So the figurines, though, we know were
You have to tell him to write that on the image because people might pick on you in that. You understand what I'm saying?
okay. Yeah,
Because
I
there's
mean,
people that might see your
It
work.
says
your
right
exit.
there at the bottom, comparative artifact visualization.
I can't read it. I can't read it. I can't read
It says AI generated
A comparative museum-style visualization based
Oh,
on
good,
Ramsey's
good.
generalized
sorry.
relic passage published in 1853.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that this is published in 1853, and Valentine didn't even come on site and start digging this up until 1879. So it was already published before 20 years, 25 years before he even started excavating. And
Is that weird?
Yeah, when Valentine got to the site, he found charcoal and ashes, literally from the burnt village, and these were described in his journals beginning in 1880. They found large amounts of charcoal and ashes, and all these were evidence of the burning from 1776. And the heat evidence is there as well from the University of North Carolina. They found clinkers, like we were talking about last week. Clinkers is basically charcoal and made from coal, and so these fires were probably started by coal fires, or they had the evidence from coal, because coal becomes a clinker when it burns. And so they had multiple layers of charcoal all through these village sites. And again, this is a visualization of what it looked like, but the fact that this charcoal is in the University of North Carolina, and it's in bags and bags, and they have catalogs, thousands and thousands of pieces of charcoal all throughout from this mound. So, but we were talking about the unroofed village houses, and well, the Midi lodges were unroofed. They were sacred architecture. Basically, they would make these longhouses situated east to west. And this is a religious ceremony or a hut that they would use for Midowin ceremonies. Well, the Cherokee had similar things that were documented in 1776. And so the THPO, this is the Cherokee. So I wrote them about this. And I said, hey, what do you think about this? Is this really a connection? Well, they said, we do not support your project. We will not review it any further. So they literally had no interest, and they said, we're not going to review it anymore. That came back this week too, when I told them what I found.
From the Cherokee.
Yeah, from the Cherokee. This is the THPO, the Cherokee Historic Preservation Board. I told them, hey, look, what about this? And they said, no, we're not interested. So that was really surprising. But
no reason, just not interested.
No, they didn't give me any reason. They didn't answer any of my questions. They just said, no, we're not interested. Yeah. It's wow. This is Cherokee villages that were burnt down, and they're not interested in recording it or documenting it.
I think it's that interpretation that I found several times among the indigenous that I was able to speak to. That is, it's in the past. It's gone. It's forgotten. We are worried about the present and the future.
Yeah. And I mean, I specifically asked them, well, what about the village name? Is it Cayuga? Is it Garden Creek? Is associated with that site because it's documented here? And they didn't answer any of those questions. So, but you're right. They once things are in the past, I think that they don't want to talk about it. They just want to leave it in the past and not address it. And I mean, but like you said, our best future is to acknowledge the past and learn from it. So this is
Anthony
Sorry, Rick.
I said something I shouldn't have, but the recent denial of information at the highest levels. Tony Fauci.
Yeah.
It's in the past. He's not going to talk about it.
Yeah, that was just a show. That was like a national.
And so they also had documented
all that was.
But they documented having auctions once they plundered the village They gathered everything together. They literally gathered the Cherokee captives as well and sold them as slaves. And they gathered up horses, cattle, corn, baskets, tools, cloth, household objects, and plunder, and they sold it in auction. This is the U.S. government, selling off the entire city. Everything was plundered and sold off in auction.
Before it was burned.
And it was, yeah, this is the stuff that wasn't burned. I mean, when whatever they gathered together, the animals and things, but they burnt. I mean, they burnt the city. They documented burning a lot of the huts and lodges down. And so they went from city to city and documented these. This was the most interesting thing is Ramsey, published these figurines that were like the Garden Creek site figurines in 1853. And he wrote that they were human and animal effigies from serpentine-like stone, which serpentine-like is the same material. It's like a steatite or iron-rich carved stone. And it was, like I say, published in 1853. So there's strong evidence there that leads to the belief that they got these from Garden Creek site when they were auctioning these off, and they burnt the villages down.
You see, on one side, and I would like to know your opinions on this. It's just occurred to me. I can somehow, although I'm sure there are some hidden purposes in that, either they are aware of them or not. But imagine, for instance, in Europe, you find sites that belong to a culture that is now a country on another country, right? And they don't reclaim it because it's ridiculous to reclaim something that is 1,000 years old or 500 years old. They lived there. They left that temple that now it's in ruins and has artifacts or statues, but they don't go there and reclaim it and say, now this is our land or those artifacts are now ours. It doesn't happen. I think that the indigenous peoples are getting to an age where they're starting to do exactly the same because it's passed on. It's now something else. There is no legitimacy to reclaim this or that because so much has gone by since. They moved on. Everything moved on. So. And that's sad because that means that less and less will be given back to, even with NAGPRA, will be given back to the tribes because either because they're not interested or they don't know what to do with it or too much has changed.
They bury it out of respect for the people that preceded them. But you'll also find, and I don't want to speak for the native because I'm not, but this is my interpretation of some of the things I've heard. They're more interested in staying alive at this point in time than they are figuring out how their ancestors did it because their ancestors didn't do it well enough. They need a better way. I need to stop there.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard when I was volunteering at the Kokia Mounds, they said, well, if it wasn't properly transferred, then it doesn't have any value to us anymore. Like this village wasn't properly transferred in the first place, so it was basically disowned or dispossessed. And from that point on, it's no longer in their vocabulary. It's essentially, it goes away, it loses its value. But I mean, it's really important to know that is a part of history, and even if it doesn't become something of value to them currently, I mean, it's still real, and it definitely was documented as part of the history of the country.
Sure, because take the Egyptian example. Egypt was stolen of so many thousands and thousands of artifacts that are now in exposition in different parts of the world. They are still to this day trying to get those artifacts back. But their purpose are not cultural. They are interested in getting back because they wanted to put it in their museum so they can make money out of the artifacts that they recover. Right? So I can't
Right.
understand.
But this map shows Robert Rankin's. This was the guy that burnt the village down, and documented it. He said this is his route to Big Pigeon River in 1776. So he came from up here by Martinsville, marched down to Salisbury around July 7th, 1776, all the way over here to the Cherokee Nation. He says he crossed the Blue Ridge, the Sawana Gap in his journal, and then they described the Big Pigeon River fight on August 20th, 1776. He says Garden Creek was the archaeological site. At Big Pigeon River, the nation had a fight, killed the Indians, took some prisoners, burnt the Indian huts, and destroyed their corn. And one of the really interesting things is the corn that was documented by Valentine in that book that we looked at. When Rick was there, we looked at this book, and it had in the front of it a catalog of the things that were found. One of the things that they found was burnt corn. And this was the last item on the list that this documented burnt corn in the village.
Tell us why the corn is important.
Well, I mean, it was their crop they live on, and they basically burnt the cornfields down, and so they couldn't live. The Cherokee couldn't live there once they didn't have their crop.
Well, they also burned all the stored corn that they had for the next winter.
Yeah,
and that was an ongoing tactical method, strategic method, maybe.
Right, the strategic. They burnt their crops down. It was like ruining their grocery store. Basically just take out their food supply. And see, the mission said they were on a punitive expedition into the Cherokee Nation after frontier attacks. They were to strike Cherokee towns, fight opposing warriors, destroy huts, corn, and supplies in order to weaken the Cherokee resistance and protect the North Carolina frontier during the Revolutionary War.
For the Christians.
Right.
Hey, Steve, what is this you shared last? Is this the book that Vince's map is coming from? Here, y'all. I think this is Vince. I think this is the book where your map, I guess, is coming from.
Well, I mean,
why he just shared it.
I don't know.
He says the book costs $250, so I don't know.
Yeah, it was something that he just dropped in chat. I thought, I don't know. Just sold at auction. The Annals of Tennessee.
Wow.
Okay, just trying to make use of what Steve was sharing. I thought it was related. That's why he was dropping it.
I wonder who bought it.
That's probably the book that was written by Ramsey. And he's the one that documented those figurines being found.
Thank you, Steve.
Is that who wrote it? Ramsey?
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah.
I know who to ask if it wasn't him that bought the book. But
yeah, by J.G.M. Ramsey. That's him.
Yeah, and Ramsey had an account of burning the village down on the Pigeon River as well.
Got it.
And so he was there, and they documented the auction. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's the one that bought these figurines at the auction and then later wrote about it in his book.
Delonga, Georgia. The two Cherokee instructors related how the language is dying and it's tough to keep interest alive. Yeah, I bet.
So this is the documentation from the Smithsonian. They sent over 400 pages, and these are transcribed letters now. 401 pages of transcribed letters from the Smithsonian about this, and it's from the Osborne papers, everything. All these federal account ledgers are documented here, and so now anyone can read about it and learn the true history of what happened. And I mean, these are some really interesting things. And well, I compiled them all here. There's a lot of detail. The pension file was from 1776. It's this Revolutionary War pension file, W5664. And so he goes through the detail of when he went through the Pigeon River and burnt the village down. and General Rutherford was the general directing this. And well, I used that. I'll share it in the chat, but it's a very long document.
Yeah, but we didn't take any land or anything.
Didn't take any land. Well, I mean, the Cherokee were forced out during the
President
Trail
said
of
we can't say we live on stolen land anymore, apparently. So yeah, but then you just crack open a book and here, let's go burn some villages and take out the food fields and make sure they can't stay here anymore.
Yeah, but that's the problem with time, Jason, because nothing was done when it was still valid. After all these years, some people start questioning, is it that still valid to say that this land was taken for them? Because you go everywhere and the countries were conquered.
There's no statute of limitations on arson. Did you know that, Ricardo? In the United States, there's no statute of limitations on arson.
Yeah,
so,
but how many countries changed hands? Can you still reclaim them? You see, that's the thing.
Yeah, no, I don't know that it makes a functional difference, but I know it makes a healing difference. The truth is important, and on any part of history, on anybody's side, and if we can color and change a piece of it, then we can color and change all of it. And so, just F that in general, dude.
Yeah, but the other side of the coin is most of these peoples that I'm talking about, whose countries were conquered and changed and so on, they no longer exist or identify themselves as such. But if you are a native group that is still alive, it's still organizing itself, it just doesn't have the land because the land was taken 100 or 200 years ago, then I think it's still valid for them to still fighting to get their land back because they still exist. Their culture still exists. Their groups still exist.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe.
So
maybe so. I mean, like for me, dude, I mean, I found out I do have native blood. I mean, very, very, pretty close, right? Like my father's grandmother was full blood, right? But even that aside, right? Because I know I have that, and I'm American. I am a citizen of this nation. I find that just to kind of be me and feel reconciled, I have to acknowledge it all. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just that's the way I rock and roll, I guess. But just sort of, it doesn't make sense to me if I don't acknowledge it as a whole. I feel like I'm ignoring pieces of me and pieces of my own history, and I'm sure we all probably should at least feel that way. I mean, that's part of wanting the truth of our past,
I can tell, at least in Portugal, if you ask some people, what they will tell you is Americans are the natives. The other ones are just immigrants. They're there, what, 200, right. 300 years? Right? They're just immigrants that took over, as much as Europe is being taken over now by immigrants too, and not only Europe, right? So who knows what will be in 30 or 50 years if it continues. It ceases to be what it is. It becomes something else.
Yep. And that's what Europe's on its way to, for sure.
But I wanted to share this too. I mean, this is after reviewing all that information that the Smithsonian sent. I asked the AI program to go ahead and, okay, tell me by grade how much of the figurines are in the affirmative, how much of the information shows that they're affirmatively pre-Columbian, and then show me how much of the information shows me that they are fraudulent or manufactured, like the Smithsonian said. And then show me, okay, in column C is how many of these figurines are post-contact or mixed evidence, like from a 1700s village of the Cherokee where they had horses and cattle and things like that. And this is what it came up with. So of those three columns, you can see the majority are pre-Columbian. 119 points were added up for pre-Columbian origin of these figurines. The second most is the post-Columbian contact. That's column C, the mixed or post-contact column. But that actually has the highest grade, 1.4. So in other words, even though the sum of those is less than the pre-Columbian, it still has a higher grade in the ranking system that it used. In the column B, well, that actually decreased down to the lowest amount, 19 points compared to the others. And the reason for that is, well, the Smithsonian has vouchers, and on the vouchers that they collected these, they wrote ethnologic specimens, and they signed off on that and certified it. After they had written ethnologic specimens, they changed the story and they said, "Oh, these are no longer ethnologic specimens. They were manufactured hoaxes." And so they basically called the figurines ethnologic manufactured hoaxes to like deceive or to be manufactured to duplicate duplicates made by Valentine, who went through and dug these up. They didn't want to acknowledge that they're really ethnologic specimens, even after they had signed off on the receipts for them as ethnologic specimens. And so they bought about 36 of these figurines from other collectors in the area, and then they called those hoaxes, or basically manufactured duplicates. They called it a duplicate set. And like the bear, we looked at the bear. Well, that was one of the ones that they purchased, and it matches the Valentine's bear exactly. But they called that a duplicate that was manufactured. And in fact, the evidence shows that it has heat applied to the stone, so much so that it turned to red from heat affected zone. Like when you have a stone that's fired, it turns color, it changes the chemistry in it, dehydrates the stone, and makes it red. So anyway, this is what it came up with. And the point of all this is there's probably a lot of the stones that are post contact, like the ones with horses on them, the ones that show camels. There's actual stones that show camels, or
And a rhinoceros.
Yeah, the rhinoceros. How about that? That one, is possibly from an African person that came from places where rhinoceros lived. And the Africans lived with the Cherokee all the way up until 1776. And they were traded as slaves. They literally had a slave trade.
Among the Cherokee, yeah. But there were also several Negroid families, or at least mixed, that moved west with them in the 1830s. And you can find it in the genealogies too.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there's quite a bit of mixing going on there.
When we went to the ceremony of the first stone of the upcoming museum, there was black natives there, and their ancestry is quite big. So they must have come before the colonization.
Yeah. And well, the interesting thing is, even when DeSoto showed up, he documented black-skinned natives living there. And I mean, they were quite common in population. They were documented throughout many of the DeSoto Chronicles in the very introduction of the book. And also,
so how to explain that genealogy?
Yeah, so how do you explain that? They had to come from somewhere. And
we all know from where black people come from. So,
well, the interesting thing is, I've heard even in articles this week, they said Europeans used to have black skin.
Yeah, especially in the north.
But it's interesting though that that has not been acknowledged, and I mean that they would consider that to be something that is a sign of fraudulent manufacture or connections to even sub-Saharan African animals on these figurines. I mean, it's a proof of Atlantic crossings at least, or possibly very much earlier manufacture, Ice Age era time frames.
It's rather a little bit unrelated, but it reminded me that in my conversation with materialist scientist from Greece like 2 weeks ago. I asked him what it was his feelings about this new Odysseus movie, and especially and about the Queen of Troy being black. And he gave me one answer that was expected, what I was hoping for, and another that I was completely surprising. That was, first, it's completely bollocks. He's well aware of history of Greece, and there were few and very sparse black populations in Greece at that time. And the second one is, it is his belief on the current Greek culture that people couldn't care less when they go and watch Odysseus on the movies, because they never see it as history. They just see it as just a piece of art. It's not the history of Odysseus. It's just a movie. It's some story, right? It's like the last three films of Star Wars. There are three movies. They're not Star Wars, but they are three movies. So you can watch them. And so I was surprised by it, especially because today I read an article from IBDM saying that Odysseus, despite all the critics they had, it's the most money-making film from Christopher Nolan. It even crossed The Dark Knight. So it's now past $1 billion in 4 weeks, which to me is shocking, which shows that people, he was right.
And it's
People
still
couldn't care
behind
less.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, people couldn't care less about historical accuracy, despite all we saw in the media. People couldn't care less. So when
Well,
you're talking
but
about this, go ahead.
It was treated as fiction, allegory. It was treated as allegory for 3,000 years or whatever it was, 2,800 years. So it's going to take a while to turn that opinion around that it was based on real things, even though they found Troy. It was still just a story.
Well, even when the fellow found Troy, right, it made some headlines at the time, but now most academics don't agree with him, funny enough. So it's just considered a story. He found a big city with a big wall on the right place,
In the right place.
following the
That's
book. But no, that's not Troy. It's a fictional place, never existed.
But yeah, this is really interesting how now we have proof that the village was burnt down in 1776. They found the same figurines that Valentine found. They documented it, and it was burnt down. And when Valentine got there, they dug it up and they found the ashes, and these were in the ashes. So they basically confirmed that that these were part of their village in 1776. And I mean, the village has now been claimed by NAGPRA, and the NAGPRA claim actually includes the Cherokee. You know, the interesting thing is how the Cherokee would say they would basically disclaim any support or interest in researching this further, but it already has been claimed by NAGPRA on behalf of the Cherokee for the village.
But not for the statuettes.
Right, they kind of excluded that in their claim. They didn't mention the statuettes. But the Cherokee chief Bushyhead in 1880 declared that the statuettes were rainmaking images that were used by the medicine men. And so that's the strongest attestation from the time that these were like sacred images that were used for making medicine, making rain and bringing rain. and that's proof in the time period before the controversy that the Smithsonian instituted, that these were sacred in medicine men rainmaking ceremonies, and that they said they were found in Western
which was a
Carolina.
crime.
Yeah, then it was determined to be a crime by the Code of Indian Offenses. They actually enacted a law that made it into a crime. From 1883, actually 7 days before Emmerich showed up on site, the U.S. government made it a crime to practice medicine men, and they called it a heathen practice. So that's part of the history too. That this act began in 1883 and went until 1978. So I mean, literally almost 100 years of time. These figurines from this site were criminalized and prosecuted as a crime.
And thus forgotten.
Yeah.
By
That's
design.
forgotten. It became, design crime to attack the medicine culture and
Right.
the, these medicine men objects were sacred to their culture. But the ones that they find at Cahokia Mounds, well, those are on display. They're praised for millions of dollars. And literally, they find these same type of medicine men figurines at Cahokia in excavations and across the country. I mean, figurines of medicine men. Symbols.
Yeah, but they also found Madonna and Child, and they don't display that one anymore at Cahokia.
That's true. That's true too.
They found an identical Madonna and Child at the man site in Indiana. They found a third one in, supposedly, and I don't have true evidence on this one, at the farm across the river, the Slate Farm.
Oh, the Slate Farm, yeah. That was the village that had like 3,000 burials that were looted.
4,880.
Wow.
And they dozed it all up for the artifacts. And that was the spawn of the NAGPRA law.
Wow.
I'm not saying NAGPRA is all bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's badly executed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. It's pretty tangly. Well, guys, thank you very much. I'm probably going to have to jump off here in a second, just because I've got a headache and my fucking arms. Y'all don't have to go anywhere, but I paddled my poor arms off today, so I'm probably going to go put something cold.
Wait till tomorrow. It'll be even more fun tomorrow.
I know. And the sunburn. Will people arrive tomorrow too, I'm sure.
Aloe vera works.
So I'm going to go put some ice on it, and I thank y'all very much. I thank everybody in the chat for hanging out with us, and I'm going to go ice up, and I will see all of you guys very, very soon.
Thank you, Jason.
All right, you got it, man. Holler at me tomorrow. We'll do some reading, okay?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, excellent.
Bye-bye.
All right, thank
See
you guys.
tomorrow.
All right, bye.
And now for us, Vince, you have something more to continue, or should we also end here?
I guess that's it. I mean, that's pretty much the main things that I found this week, and hopefully people learned some things, and glad that we got a chance to talk about it.
Rick, in relation to what he said, and especially to the tablets in the beginning, you want to add anything?
Especially what?
The tablets he mentioned.
Oh. Gloria Farley tablets, like the Heavier Rune stone.
Yeah.
Because it's not a portable artifact unless you can move the whole mountain. Yes, I'd encourage anyone who gets close to eastern Oklahoma to spend a couple hours out there in that park. Now,
Can you bring up a location, Vince?
it's Heavener, Oklahoma, or well, the park's just outside of town. But the engraving, the tablet, as you call it, the rune, the runic writing is, like I said earlier, it's an immense particular engraving on the side of the mountain that they've covered over to protect it. And it also is associated with some other rune stones that when you draw their locations on a flat map, kind of like that one, it kind of forms a straight line. I just haven't figured out what it's aligned to yet. I will at some point. Gloria also wrote extensively about ancient foreign coins that showed up in the United States. And I can't quote it exactly, but I'll paraphrase it. She was writing to a professional, quote unquote, archaeologist about the frequency and impressive numbers and types of ancient foreign coins that have showed up. But none of them are accepted by academia because they're not found by archaeologists. They're found by children and chickens and various ground-dwelling vermin. But that doesn't make them fake. It just makes them no context.
Why don't they study them anyway?
Because it doesn't provide them any context or any proof that it wasn't planted or anything. It's not found by an archaeologist, therefore it's not useful to archaeologists. And there is truth in that.
It is, but when the numbers start to accumulate, isn't it important to make a relation?
To the best of my reckoning, we're up to well over 1,000 ancient coins that are out of place artifacts.
Yeah, so Steve was posted up in the, it's going to be hard for me to find, but he gave the number of the sites or artifacts that Gloria Farley had documented. Oh, there it is. The website to her and her name includes 890 comparative references matching Old World anomalies to North American sites. 890.
Well, it's grown since then.
But the thing is, what people don't realize, it only takes one to be real. For the context,
but it takes a whole lot more than that to convince academia. Just look at Lonzo Meadows as an example. Since we're on the runestone stuff,
sure.
we're talking Norse almost certainly, although they weren't the only ones who used runes or Futhark. Lonzo Meadows was discovered, quote unquote, in I believe it was 1962, and it was documented from then until about 2009 before academia actually acknowledged that it was a Norse settlement. And they still won't acknowledge that it was a colony because that has legal implications. But it was a colony and you can check all the boxes for that. The artifacts that were found included things like spindle whorls, which they used that to make yarn from usually wool. Sheep if they were in Greenland or Iceland, but they apparently didn't have sheep in Canada. Oh, but what they did have, and it shows up in Greenland, is wool from bison.
Probably wood bison, no?
Almost certainly eastern wood bison, yes. So the smaller variety, but they didn't make it up to Lonzo Meadows. So the material itself was imported to Lonzo Meadows from further south, along with some other foodstuffs like butternuts. Butternuts never grew within 500, maybe 600 miles of Lonzo Meadows, but they showed up in the dietary remains of the site. And they had ship's nails and all kinds of metal stuff that represented more than just repairing boats. They were outfitting new boats with materials that were almost certainly imported, the metal stuff. But it's not impossible that they set up a crucible or two in, say, like southwestern Ohio, because they're found there.
Yeah, because
So
they even found a nursery right in there with a baby cradle and places by the water
Right.
that look like where you would build a ship from
Yeah,
scratch to then launch
right.
into the water.
Well, and the idea that they had the spindle wheels and they were spinning yarn, the men didn't do that work, so they had women. Period.
Exactly.
They almost certainly had at least one birth if you put any credence at all into the sagas. What we got there?
This is the Heaven-Year runestone.
Thank you.
And I remember Gloria talking about this, and it was interesting about how the cross hatching was matching, the cross hatching that we talked about at Cahokia, but also that this is a boundary stone. I mean, it's right on the border of Oklahoma, and I believe she referred to it as a boundary stone for
Right, but
for the-
there some of the other rune stones that were found near it and this one describe a land claim or a land title, if you will.
yes.
And
That's a
and so
problem.
yeah, that was it. Well, yeah, it is. That's one of the legal hassles of this research, because this stone, this message, represents a legal land claim between two Norse landowners in Oklahoma, medieval Norse landowners in Oklahoma.
You can't have that.
No,
Right. She says, do I think Vikings carved this? Yes, I do, said Rogers. We built this.
actually, I don't think they were Vikings. I think they were medieval Norse, and there is a distinction there.
Yeah.
Viking is a profession. I can.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like gangs, but
They were Norse. In fact, if they were Vikings, they wouldn't stay.
correct. Hit and run.
They wouldn't stay. So they had to be Norse people instead of Vikings. I don't deny that Vikings went into the land and explored, and probably are the source why these people actually went there, because they said, "Oh, we find this land over there. We Vikinged it," and so they
And there's
came.
some easy pickings.
Sorry.
And there was some easy pickings.
Yeah.
And they talk about the Scandinavian language translating to Gunobedal, which is Sundial Valley or Monument Valley.
Yep. And the late
Gunobedal.
Myron Payne took a lot of time studying previous researchers too, comparing the Gamel Norse, the Old Norse language, to a number of the Eastern North American languages, and finding, I think he found like 15,000, 17,000 words with very similar pronunciation and identical meanings. Yeah, like there is no chance. There is no universe where that is pure chance.
And the Kessingen stone would be even further south into the middle of the country, right?
Kensington stones up in
Kensington
Wisconsin.
is a lot further north than Heavener.
Oh, it's more north. Okay. I thought
Yeah.
it was south.
Yeah.
No,
North
probably
Wisconsin.
800 and 600 miles, give or take,
That's a lot.
further north. I'd have to look that one up.
So one of the things I noticed is when they did genetic testing, they didn't find many indicatives that these people mingled with the natives. So they probably didn't mix that very well, except on trade.
Well, yeah, they say that, but when the first settlers or even explorers arrived in the Maritimes of Canada, they described people with red hair, green eyes, and there were also other areas with similar cosmetic
And
applicants.
tall people too, right?
Well, yes, and yeah, some of the redheads were quite tall and robust. And that used to be one of the terms that the archaeologists would use to describe very large stature humans was robust individual.
So
But the
Stevie's,
red hair and green eyes, or red hair and blue eyes, or even blonde hair was mentioned repetitively and continuously by the natives, describing people who had come before the current batch of assholes. I mean, white folks.
Stevie's saying that once the boundary was walked, it had to be permanently marked to be recognized under Norse law. A bauta, memorial stone, or a carved rock face carved as the physical proof of ownership. That's what you're talking about, right?
Right. And if there wasn't a rock nearby, they raised it and called it a resting, raised stone.
Well, and none of it is recognized, taught. It has been studied, but it isn't taught and it isn't shared.
Well, it's been rejected. That's the hard part. Even if one academic says, I don't believe it, then that goes into the writing and it stays there.
Right. They just, once it's rejected, it's not reconsidered or revisited in archaeology. It's like a
Lonzo Meadows being the one exception.
Yeah.
Because they
So
had
if
no
you go down
choice.
the East Coast, you find, if you go down the East Coast and you look at all of the writings of the 19th century researchers who weren't professional historians, you'll find about 25 different sites that they attributed to medieval Norse. Horsford did the most work in that, but he had the most money too.
Well, they also found those round boats that were Norse type of boats that.
You usually hear about the Welsh used coracles, but the Welsh weren't the only ones who used coracles. Swedes did too. Swiss did, for that matter, or whoever that was, where we now call it Switzerland.
I think they're still used in some parts.
Probably. I know there are parts of Central and West Central Africa that still use what we would call a coracle. They use different materials, of course. But they also claim to still have dinosaurs, so.
Stevie saying that while no Norse indigenous genetic crossover has ever been found in Oklahoma, groundbreaking genetic mapping has proven that the Norse interbreed with indigenous North Americans elsewhere, which is a very, like D-Love says, it's the opposite of acknowledgement.
There is Native American genetic material in at least four different families in Iceland, and it's been there for 1,000 years. So they did interbreed. Finding it in North America is, well, it's denied whether it's there or not. It just, if they found it, they would deny it, or they would say it was a mistake, or that there was contamination of the sample, because that is the history of DNA studies. They will tell you, though, that the Anzic child separated from the Mayans of 800 AD 28,000 years before either one of them died. So that is an intense mystery right there.
Well, Steve looked further, and now they say no formal academic DNA testing has ever been conducted in Oklahoma to look for ancient Norse genetic markers in Native American populations. So they have the DNA, but they don't compare it beside what they're trying to find.
Right. The Cherokee have the most, and not even the entire Cherokee Nation, because they will deny what happened with the middle band, which the rest of them don't recognize. But Donald Yates, I don't know if you've run across that name, Dr. Donald Yates, ran a DNA study of the middle branch, and he found, I'm going to say Levantian DNA amongst the middle band of the Cherokee. And he's got the credentials, but he doesn't have any recognition of his work because it just can't work, can't happen, ain't going to happen, leave me alone, which is what Vince ran into.
Yeah. Well, when I did my research to write the book that I have almost finished about the Pendejo Cave, I had to pass through all the Clovis controversy of dating sites older than Clovis, right? And so, although now it is possible to be pre-Clovis in dating, they are still going to go to the single letter to try and find something wrong with it.
Yeah.
They accept it,
Yeah.
but they'll look for it. But before they had 7, 8, 10, 12 sets of evidence proving pre-Clovis, right, they kept burying it, not even look at it. There are papers that were on the drawer for so many years trying to be pushed
Yep.
forward, and they just kept rejecting. They didn't even want to read it.
And ruined a whole bunch of careers that way too.
And when this fellow, that is one of the most recognized archaeologists for them, found dates that were 30,000 BC, 50,000 BC, up to 75,000 BC, even it was very important, and it dictated some of the rules of how to do archaeology on the field. They started to put him to the side because rubbish. You cannot go 10,000, 20,000 years back from what we already have. So they keep.
Well, we now have
the
two
same
mammoth
mistakes.
kill sites that have been studied and restudied and peer reviewed and picked apart and put back together. One is in Colorado, and it was 33,000 BC, and that one is pretty much accepted now. The other one, though, in San Diego, is 133,000 years old, with all of the same evidence except for the date.
130,000.
133,000 years ago, somebody butchered a mammoth at what is now San Diego, California. And they're also finding, they're not really publishing it yet, they're still studying it, but they think they found butcher marks on a American camel that came out of the tar pits at La Brea. And they think it's 58,000 years old, but they still haven't published it. I don't know what's up with that one. They might have found something that, detracts from their dating.
I didn't touch it in my paper about the horses, and I was asked about it when we did the reading of the paper on the shaman and the philosopher, and it's my quick answer, my quick thought about it, that camels were not as easy to domesticate or as friendly as the horses, and so because they didn't have the human assistance and moving from worse places to better places, eventually they came extinct. What is your view on that? Because I haven't looked into it with any depth.
Well, they're not exactly, they're neither Bactrian nor dromedary camels. They're camelids. They're a different, they're different species. And llamas and alpacas are an offshoot of that main
Camelids,
line.
yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
they're not entirely extinct,
Right.
but they were used as pack animals. They just weren't big enough to do what dromedaries do.
Sure.
And backtracks don't ever try to ride a backtrack camel. Just saying.
and the fact that they are most that they survive better in white environments. Cold environments. As the temperature raised, they
Well, the
got
backrooms do for sure. Yeah,
south and south and south, and so
alpacas do too. But the Maya couldn't really use alpacas or uh, any of them llamas in the region of the Yucatan because it's hot, it's humid. They can't eat the vegetation and survive on it because they're adapted to higher elevations
higher
and
elevations. Yeah, sure.
different conditions all the way around. And you'll find alpacas will do better in Maine than they would in Florida. But people keep trying to raise them in Texas, and it just
And horses survive anywhere.
Horses almost, but North America has an issue for horses that haven't already been here for a couple 3,000 years, like for instance Appaloosas. American soil and therefore American forage doesn't have enough selenium in it for wild horse populations to thrive, allegedly. But if you look at Colorado, some of those places, they seem to be doing pretty well. So selenium is the first additive they look at when they're going to buy fortified feed for horses, or should be the first thing they're looking at. And academic archaeologists, I'll qualify that one, don't know jack about horses, just like they don't know jack about most of them about metalworking or smelting or any of that stuff. There are a few. They're catching on as we continue. But the horses, Appaloosas, have a lower need for selenium than any of the other breeds, other than the Morgan, which apparently just kind of magically made itself not need as much selenium. But those two breeds, the Appaloosa is a native breed in America. That is my position. I stick with it. Morgans are just extremely adaptive. Morgans originated in America in historic times. So, but like cattle, as an example, cattle. You make a brand new big cattle ranch in some part of Texas. Don't figure on that breed of cattle adapting fully to that batch of foliage for 8 generations. And I'm sure that's a pretty good rule of thumb for most mammals.
Sure, I understand what you're saying.
Well, yeah, the article you wrote about horses is really interesting, and I wanted to talk about the Odo tablet, which has horses on it as well. That was found in Wisconsin, and it was Catlinite, found amongst the Oto tribe, and that one was depicting a horse that was engraved on the Catlinite, and
it had a spotted rump.
Yeah. I got a photo of that from the University of Missouri collection, and it's a big round piece of catlinite about like this big, and it just has engraved horse on one side. And well, then the camelid that Rick was mentioning, I mean, we know the Mount Pisgah camelid was one of the famous artifacts from Mount Pisgah site. There was also horses with humans mounted riding on them. And there's a lot of evidence of horses in the winter counts, and those found in the plains cultures.
And they even the indigenous people. Of course, I didn't spoke to many, but that don't believe they had horses because they say, no, we have what we call the big dogs. And we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
Those big dogs, because if you go to Mongolia, the horses of the steppe are not as big as the historical horses of America that are
No, they're
between
about the same
115
stature as a zebra or
One,
Shetland pony.
yeah, 115 to 135 centimeters at the shoulder. So it's not a tall horse, but it's a horse you can ride, because Mongolia's horse are a little bit shorter than that. They are 1 meter at the
But they
shoulder,
have 13
1.5.
ribs.
So the horses in America that they call primitive species were not tri-hoofed. They only had one hoof. They were not primitive horses. They were completely modern horses as we have today, just different breed, different type of horse. So perfectly capable of intermingling with the horses that were coming by the people arriving in the Americas. It would change over many, many thousands, maybe hundreds or thousands of years. And today it's quite hard to say, well, where are the American horses? They don't exist, except for the one you mentioned, which I think it's clearly the case.
Yeah. Vince, I know you've seen the pictograph of a horse along the Mississippi River in Illinois,
Yeah.
but we're not going to tell anybody where it is. But it's there, and it is believed by most archaeologists to be 1,000 years old, except for the state archaeologist of Illinois.
Well, you find that the dates that are unquestionable from archaeology on my paper draw a line from 6000 BC to 1230 something AD. Continuous line. So how are they extinct? They keep
Well,
appearing.
they're not. Well, there are other cases. Like, I think I've mentioned it before. There was a case of a mound, a burial mound in Wisconsin. I believe it was 1939 or so when they opened it. And one of the first things they found was an axe, stone axe, that still had part of the handle, part of the wood and the leather strap.
They can date it.
Well, they couldn't in 1939.
But they can now.
But they kept it. And underneath it, by about 15 inches, they found the skeleton of a small horse. So they just covered it all back up, kept the axe, but they covered it all back up because the horse had been modern and had been an intrusive burial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, except it was directly underneath this axe, which in 1957 was dated with C14 when it was invented. And they found it to be a 900 AD plus 40 minus whatever it was. Because it was recent enough they could get a pretty good sample. So it was pre-Columbian axe above a recent horse somehow, according to the Wisconsin archaeologists. Which is, it wasn't a horse, it was a bull, apparently. Their answer was bullish. Guys, I've had a long and hard day.
Yeah, we are going to end it here. Thank you very much, both. Vince, amazing as always. Rick, a fountain of information and wisdom. Thank you. And thank you all that stayed with us for this long. And I bid you a very fond farewell to you all. Thank you.
And I won't be here next week, but I'll be thinking of you as I rake in money.
Yes, what we all need, fortunately.
Yeah.